My name's Denora. I'm doing this recording because I got assigned chapter 3. So let's get started. Hang on one second. Let me get myself together here. Okay. So I have the Prezi right here for help, but I'm going to put the link um, in my post. That way you guys can access it whenever you guys want because it's kind of hard to read through here. Okay, so I had chapter 3, classroom practices for effective English learner instruction. Uh, okay, so we have a few questions that need to be answered through this chapter. One of it is, how are English learners assessed and for what purposes? How do curriculum standards serve English learners? How is instruction differentiated to meet English learners' varied needs? How does thematic instruction promote language and content learning? How does group work facilitate language and content learning? And then how is sheltered instruction planned and implemented? So at the beginning of this chapter, we see that it opens up with a KWL chart. This chart can be used with the students. First, they are to say what I know. So let's say they choose some kind of theme. You would have them put what they already know. Let's say it's about oceans. They can put about animals, wildlife, anything like that. And then the W stands for what I wondered. So it's kind of like what they want to know. And then the last one is the L, which is what I learned after the theme or the lesson has been completed. That's where they fill out what they learned throughout the entire experience. Alright, so one of the first questions is, how do curriculum standards serve English learners? Standards typically consist of 3 components. The first one is content standards that delineate what students should know and be able to do. Number 2, benchmarks that specify expected knowledge and skills for each content standard at different grade levels. And 3, performance-based progress indicators that describe how students will show they have met the standard. So your job is to study the curriculum standards for your grade level and subject, and then align them with your state's English language proficiency, which are the ELP standards. For example, a number of states have adopted the Common Core State Standards, which can be referred to as the CCSS. They're designed to ensure that all K through 12 students are college and career ready by the time they graduate high school. For the purposes of language and literacy development, the CCSS address English language arts, literacy and history and social studies, science, and technical subjects. The CCSS stresses the importance of academic language used in the 4 language domains, which are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. At the same time, they emphasize the integrated use of the 4 domains during classroom activities, such as listening to each other and talking about a story that was read and writing a summary of it. And like I said, I'm going a little bit fast just for the time purposes of the video, but I'm going to leave the link to the Prezi down on the bottom. The ELP standards complement general curriculum standards such as the CCSS in order to offer performance indicators for each standard across grades and ELP levels to assess whether the standard has been met. They also focus on the integrated use of listening, speaking, reading, and writing for academic and social purposes. They also promote English language development for social interaction, intercultural sensitivity, and instructional purposes. And lastly, they also acknowledge and value student diversity, which may include promoting bilingual and bicultural development. And you can see these, the example, it's figure 304, and it shows how one can use those performance indicators to help one understand how ELZ's minds works. Okay, so then one of the other questions is, how is instruction differentiated to meet the varied needs of English language learners? When you tailor your instruction according to students' English language development levels, as highlighted in standards documents, you are differentiating instruction. So one can say that it also includes respect, caring, and variety and flexibility. Before instruction, to determine prior knowledge of lesson content, to determine particular student strengths and needs during instruction, to check for student understanding, to modify a lesson to meet student needs, to identify students who need additional help after instruction, to assess student achievement of standards objectives, to inform next steps for teaching and learning. And then after that, we have the sheltered instruction, or specifically designed academic instruction in English, which can be referred to as the SDAIE. This is a form of content-based instruction that helps English learners understand and learn academic content while acquiring English. A list of the examples of sheltered instruction can be found on page 94. So, when you tailor your instruction to your English learners' language proficiency levels and prior knowledge, you are sheltering instruction. When you further modify instruction based on your students' varied talents, strengths, and learning needs, you are differentiating instruction. Your planning requires you to address 4 questions: what, who, how, and how well. What refers to what content you will teach based on curriculum standards. Who refers to your students, their ELP levels, primary language and cultural backgrounds / experiences, assets, learning strengths, and needs. How refers to instructional strategies and materials tailored to student strengths and needs, individual, small group, or whole class activities, modifications for language proficiency levels, and other special needs. And then how well refers to performance expectations and assessment procedures. In addition to language objectives, you need to plan language-related lesson modifications, particularly how you will modify your instructional delivery to support English language learners' comprehension. First, you plan ways to accompany your instructional talk with visuals and concrete objects, stuff of that nature. Second, you plan what to say to get your point across. And third, you think of ways to rephrase information and define new words and context if needed. Finally, it's important to examine your individual, whole class, and small group activities to identify social interaction opportunities that serve as a basis for your social affective objectives. Your social affective objectives concern social cultural adjustment, interpersonal relationships, empathy, self-esteem, and respect for others. One of the other ways one can assess ELLs in the classroom can be through the RTI system, which stands for Response to Intervention. This is a school-wide program that offers extra help to students who are not yet meeting your curriculum goals and standards in reading and math. The RTI Tier 1, the RTI intervention can be modified and assessed through different tiers. Tier 1 offers classroom instruction based on the general education curriculum for a given grade level. Students who have difficulties after Tier 1 instruction are referred to Tier 2 for extra help. Tier 2 intervention is usually carried out in small groups targeting specific problems shared by all the students in the group. Tier 3 provides one-on-one instruction tailored for individual students whose difficulties persist despite the small group instruction in Tier 2. Tier 3 instruction, in order to be effective, may require many weeks of daily work with individualized strategies. At all levels of instruction, RTI emphasizes the use for research-validated instructional strategies. And I put over here a map that can guide you through the different RTI tiers. So how does group work facilitate content and language learning? Group work is an important element of sheltered instruction, or the SDAIE. When you provide opportunities for English learners to interact with their English-speaking peers, receptive and productive language learning opportunities abound. As an example of collaborative group, imagine 3 or 4 students working together to create a mural. Language will be used naturally to accomplish the task at hand. Collaborative projects generate particularly rich language learning opportunities, especially when groups include advanced or native English speakers. Because group work provides opportunities for individuals to display their talents and to procure assistance from peers, it is an important component of differentiated sheltered instruction. Of course, the teacher can help facilitate this type of instruction through planning. But I also put table 3.2, which shows different ways that students can be grouped. Another question was, how does thematic instruction promote content and language learning? Through more prevalent in the primary grades, thematic instruction lends itself to virtually any content at any grade level. For example, an extensive cooperative theme project, which can be building toothpick bridges, would be appropriate for upper elementary grades through high school. In this integrated science/math building project, students work in groups of 6, forming a construction company to design and build a bridge out of toothpicks. The unit begins with readings on the history of bridge development, analysis of bridge designs, and information about how bridges work. Students may visit local bridges to examine their architecture and consider how they are structured to bear weight and withstand constant use. The goal is to design and build the strongest bridge possible, staying within the company's projected budget. In the planning stage, companies design their bridges, estimating the quantity and cost of necessary materials. So, one can say that thematic instruction creates a meaningful conceptual framework within which students are invited to use both oral and written language for learning content. Secondly, theme-based collaborative projects create student interest, motivation, involvement, and purpose. Moreover, as students work together on their projects, they naturally use both oral and written language to question, inform, problem solve, negotiate, and interact with their peers. So one of the other ideas that was discussed in this chapter was scaffolding. Scaffolding was discovered by a Russian psychologist, Lev Vygotsky. He introduced a useful concept about learning and development when he pointed out that what the learner can do with assistance today, he or she can do alone tomorrow. Teaching, he urged, must aim not at today's but at tomorrow's development, or as he called it, the zone of proximal development, which can be referred to as the ZPD. Learners need to be challenged, but with support and assistance that permit them to perform at the next level. The support and assistance that permits this performance is called scaffolding. Scaffolding, in short, offers temporary support provided by more capable people, helps learners to perform a complex process they are not yet capable of unassisted, facilitates learning or development of a skill as an integrated whole rather than drill or smaller aspects of the skill one at a time, and is also dropped when no longer needed. And here I put a little diagram of how one should use scaffolding in the classroom. So another idea was how are English learners assessed. Assessment serves 3 important purposes. One of them is identification and program placement for students in need of language support devices. Another one is program evaluation for reporting to local, state, and federal education agencies. And then another one is documentation of student learning and progress to inform instructional decisions and communicate progress to parents. So within this assessment, there are 2 types of differentiated assessment. One of them is formal, which measures include standardized tests such as group administered standardized achievement tests in reading, language arts, and mathematics. Formal measures also include individually administered tests such as those used to identify special learning needs. Informal assessment measures include such items as teacher-made tests, miscue analysis of oral reading, checklists, anecdotal observations, and student work samples. Individual states and multi-state consortia have developed their own language proficiency tests. For example, the WIDA has developed the WIDA Access Placement Test. This is used now in more than 30 states to determine initial program placement for ELLs across the country. For English learners, the test publisher's norms are not appropriate unless the test was normed on English language learners, which is seldom, if ever, the case. Furthermore, large-scale standardized achievement tests are technically not designed to reflect any individual's performance accurately, but rather only group performance. So one can say that document observations of your student as they engage in authentic learning tasks. And that is it. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead and put the link down on the bottom so you guys will be able to know what I said, because I know I was talking kind of fast. And I will put my 3 questions accordingly. So, yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.